All right, Donnie, we're back for the playoff review. A lot of people aren't even playing they're not even doing these contests. They're not even doing full-on reviews. So I'm really proud that we're going to continue to do them. I think there's a lot of value in them, but I've always just enjoyed conversations of why I made this decision or why transparently I still believe this. I find a lot of value in those kind of conversations. I know some people bellyache. It really does bother people to be wrong. Sometimes I view being wrong as like being in the right room, if that makes sense. Like if I'm faced with a difficult challenge and a difficult decision point, and there's like a lot of strategy and gamification involved in it, I kind of thrive in that environment. Like I've always thrived off competition. So that's why I think I appreciate this content more than most. I mean, like I said it on a normal football Sunday, Monday morning is my favorite time of the year because it allows me to look back at some of the reviews and some of the people I trust in the industry to be like, oh, they can be wrong too. They can be wrong. And my core this week was totally wrong about Hollywood Brown and Hopkins, but I hit enough things within the lineup that you and Gov built to say that, oh, I'm not a complete idiot. Like I was still on a lot of the right core plays. And I think that's a very valuable kind of takeaway that you should have. You can be wrong about some things and right about others. And really what we are trying to do is meld together or blend. How can we be the most right and capitalize on it? And even this week where we didn't win a lot, I don't even know no, we did end up taking $1.50 in one of our contests. That's better than zero. That keeps you alive for another lineup. Maybe you have to adjust your bankroll management if this is all I had in the account, but it still gives you a chance to play, the next week and then the next week after that. So I value reviews like this.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you want to start breaking down this lineup? Because this was my core.
Here. It was. Okay.
So scroll back up to the top. Just because the core here was Henry, Allen, Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
What I told myself going into this was I want at least 25 from each of them, and if one goes off, awesome. Obviously, that didn't happen, but Barkley went off, and that was the point of this. It has such a low floor because the chances that all of them miss on the same week was so astronomically low, in my opinion. It averages out to about, a little bit over, I think, 25 per player. It hit value, in my opinion. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think it hit value of, man, we paid up. We got not exactly what we wanted, but the points were there. If we would have faded, so many people would have faded one of the two or even two of the three. I don't think many people faded all three, but, and this was in a script where Josh Allen didn't, go crazy. He still hit value, but he doesn't go crazy. He didn't need to. Derrick Henry had an awful first half and still 15 points.
Yeah.
Like, this is why I played this. There was a clear floor of where the average should at least equal out to each of them having 20 points.
Correct.
That is 60 points minimum I expected from this.
Right.
It would be awesome to get 75 points combined from them. We did get that about. We got right around 75.
Well, that's the thing is we have a base now too. We have a core group of guys who return, who give comments. We try to give as much feedback as possible. So people will probably remember when Gov did this during the season a couple of weeks ago. It might be more now. The weeks kind of combine for me and I get lost. But a couple of weeks ago, when Tampa was making a push, we played White and Bucky Irving, for the idea that, okay, maybe that does limit our highest upside. But what it does is it forces us to expect a lot of points from that running game. And then you just hope that something else smashes alongside it. You hope that, like, for this lineup, John Mechie has a breakaway touchdown, who has the speed to do it. But you force in the automatics or the most projected outcome, and I think we did that. And sure, you might have expected more from Henry, to your point, but you got way more than you would have bargained for with Barkley at 42. So he kind of made up for the lack of production with Henry. Unfortunately, though, for this lineup to really excel, both of them had to smash.
Two of the three had to smash.
Right, but you can see this lineup cashed, and you can laugh at a cash all you want, but like we are trying to show people a small bankroll builder kind of mentality of like you can take this small bankroll and you can build it up. And having a small min cash win is still a win. So, and like I said, if it was the only money we had, going into next week, we could still play next week with this win. It's not profit, but sometimes, you got to cut your losses. And I think this was a very safe floor lineup. I think you built this lineup basically for this outcome. If the other two lineups don't hit, if the other two fun outcomes don't hit, at least having to start, the stars in this lineup makes sense.
And then you get Kelsey in this as well, which it ended up being amazing.
Right.
Yeah, I think me and you both played a lot of Kelsey last week just because we loved it so much.
I like the floor or the ranges of Kelsey. I thought no matter what range we got of Kelsey, it wasn't a bad play because even if he had Snowflake similar to Henry, he was going to be so high owned and he was going to have so many opportunities. It's a lot easier to swallow a Snowflake, Donnie, when you know that guy's involved in the offense. Like Henry, for example, I didn't mind that Snowflake because I knew he was involved. Like up into the last second of that game, even that 2-point conversion, you could have made the argument that Henry was going to get this ball, on the 2-point conversion, and they're going to rely on him.
And if Henry got like the 2 points there, or if 16 yards from basically he's 16 yards from not snowflaking, which I know he doesn't flame, but he's 16 yards from not snowflaking. Okay.
And of course, like when the lineups are shorter and there's fewer options, of course you gotta be different, and like the different edges are really going to be magnified in a situation like that. But to your point, that's exactly why you would want a stars and scrubs build. If there's limited combatants for a contest, you want the best ones. We were able to get Josh Allen, we were able to get Barkley, we got the heavy hitters in this.
And to be honest, did we really play scrubs? Like the worst player on this team was wide receiver 2 Josh Metchie. Like that was the absolute worst player on this team. We did not have a single bad player in this lineup or one in a bad position. You could argue with me that Metchie's a bad player, but his opportunity is amazing.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's the point is like we're talking about a condensed slate. We're talking about the playoffs. When you're in the playoffs, you're a good team. We're not talking about week 1 in the regular season trying to find the safest plays or trying to find the highest projected plays. Everyone at this point is a good player at some skeleton level. Like, there's a reason each team is there. Now, whether you agree, whether you cheer for a certain type of laundry, that is your own prerogative. But what I'm saying is, like, Donnie's right. The skill is there. And sure, even John Metchie was probably off the wall play, if you will, or like the one leverage point. But even he was getting wide receiver 2 work because Woods was injured.
How many targets did he have that game? Does it show you?
I don't know. I know the week prior he had 8 because I'm more familiar with that slide. Let me look though. But the whole point was Dell was out, Woods was out. He only got 2 that week. But this is the week where he just they didn't they just were not efficient.
Yeah, 2 targets is really low for Metchie. When's the last time he had that? Right.
But he still had 35 yards, and then you look at a week where Hopkins put up 0, Zacchaeus put up 0, which we'll get to because I'll show the rest of my lineups here as we go through. But now we can just open it up and talk about the weekend, Donnie, if there's anything that you want to hit on. I was surprised how many zeros there were. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised because I think that's just the new NFL. It's like everyone knows DFS now. Everyone has their own strategy. And so to fit in some of these, the high-priced volume guys, you're going to have to take on the risk of 0. I don't think Hollywood Brown was a bad play. Now, maybe that's biased because I played him in a lot of personals. I had him in my core. I'm going to go right back to him this week.
I'll be going back to him as well. I mean, I only played a little of them last week, but I'm going right back to it. I don't care.
And I think that's how you have to overweight your mistakes and this kind of build, because like I said, we have limited options anyways. This is not a full slate situation. This isn't this is week 3. We don't have enough data. We don't have enough information on how this defensive coordinator calls his plays. Is this quarterback used to this wide receiver? We don't have any of those concerns at this point. What we do have is opportunity, and sometimes the opportunity is just not going to work out. Like, I think Hollywood Brown had 2 chances at a touchdown in that game.
Well, I think the first chance wasn't really a chance at a touchdown. It was a deep ball, but not a touchdown.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You could say that's a chance by the metrics, but even if you watch the game, it was clearly over his head. But even then, I could say, well, he was involved. He was still better than playing Sims from the Ravens, who actually got like 2 points on a screen pass, So I think there's a difference between taking a 0 on like a good percentage chance for it to happen and taking a 0 just because you're trying to get too cute. So I'm not even mad at that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the mistake there was heavy stacking Kansas City. Like, they've just I said it beforehand. They haven't scored 30 yet. I think they haven't scored 30 for a reason. They're just they don't need to, for one, and 2, are they even capable of it anymore? Like, right now, are they capable of scoring 30 points? I still don't know if the answer is yes. I love the talent on the team. I love Hopkins. I love Hollywood. I love Worthy. I love Kelsey. Like, their offensive line solid. Mahomes is there, and you have 2 backs that I trust in Hunt and Pacheco. Yet they don't score. Yeah. So I don't know I don't know.
I think there's ways to do it even worse than what we did, which is to play Hopkins or to play, Worthy because he's a value, or if you perceive him as a value, but not play the quarterback. Like, whatever role you want to perceive in the offense is one thing, but then not to stack it or to overweight it, as Gov would tell you if he was here. In these smaller slates that are more condensed, you have to overweight, and you really have to believe in your takes.
So, and with this lineup, this lineup doesn't cash. And I will take the blame on this mostly. I think this was Gov's core.
It was.
Because I said this in the show. One of them is going to do it. I don't know which one. I will play both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care which one we played between Pacheco and Hunt. One of them has to do something. Hunt got over 10 points. So I picked Hunt. Yes, Hunt had over 10. I didn't care which one it was. I didn't want to play all expensive running backs this week. I wanted to find a cheaper back that wasn't Eckler or Robinson. I went with a Kansas City guy. I just picked the wrong guy. Now, Pacheco had 2 red zone targets, and he had some rush work in the red zone. He did nothing with that opportunity and lost those snaps to Hunt this game. I'll live with that because he was their first option in it. They tried with Pacheco. It didn't work, and then they brought Hunt in. Mm-hmm. See, you're going to tell me I got the first option in the red zone work, and he just did nothing? Okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is. That is the gamble we're playing.
Well, it's kind of like playing Brian Robinson, and
that's the difference between us cashing, by the way. If you see the cash line, it's at 154.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we literally would have cashed if it's Hunt instead of Pacheco.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that we're going to 100% jam Hunt in this next week. The reason I was surprised with the 10 points on it, he didn't even know, is because I know he had 7 because he got the touchdown. But I know he wasn't very much involved after that. So, yeah, sure, you can be happy with the touchdown. I'd be happy too if I played him. But you had to know that was the outcome. I think we actually made the better play because I think we did it with the assumption, especially in this lineup, that Pacheco would have more opportunity to do more things. I think
Hunt last week had 8 attempts, 44 yards, a touchdown, and a catch.
Right.
So, and I think Pacheco's stats were like very similar touch-wise,
similar.
Well, we had criticism about it. They're splitting, it could happen. But I said at the time, that's the risk of playing it. That's why I'm paying so much less for it compared to what everyone else is paying running back.
Well, my point is, like, if you ask me who is more likely to score a touchdown, Hunt or Pacheco, I would say Hunt. But I think the reason we were playing him was, hey, we can get different. We think Pacheco's workload is going to get more exploitable here. We think he'll be more involved. Guess what? We were wrong about that. He was not utilized more. I honestly thought we would see less Hunt snaps and more Pacheco, and there would be more.
No, Kansas City's going to go with whoever's playing well at the moment.
Right.
That's just clear.
That's what they said, and I didn't believe it. And sometimes, like, maybe that's what we need to do in these smaller slates, like the playoff slate, to be like, you know what? Sometimes you just have to eat the bullet. It didn't work in this lineup, but actually, it didn't kill us either. I think of all the lineups we built, this is the one that deserved the cash. I know we talked about the $1.50 already because they had the green marker. It looked cool. I think this lineup was actually built the smartest, and it just didn't work. And sure, Donnie, you took in the ownership of the 1.8 because it's so glaring. But I just think that's such an unfortunate outcome for all of what you had. I mean, you just talked about the touchdown, and obviously that makes it almost a 10-point smash right there. But if he does even half of that, if he gets 5, if he's around John Mechie's, outcome, this lineup.
I mean, still he snowflakes with that price. But again, I know why I was playing Hunt. I knew this, Pacheco. I knew this was possible, and that's fine. And I'm not going to be upset that it happened.
Right.
I said it was a coin flip between the two, and I don't care which one you play. I want to get one of them.
But I'm saying, like, even into the next round, if you said you can play one guy, Hunt or Pacheco, I'm still playing Pacheco because I'm like
50-50 on it. Still, I would play half and half. If you gave me 4 lineups, I'm going half Pacheco, half Hunt.
So you literally do that with your bankroll. Like, if I give you $10, you're taking 5 and putting on Pacheco, 5 and putting on Hunt.
Yeah, if that's like the rule, if I had to play one, I wouldn't actually go 50-50 because I would want to play other backs this week. But, like, I think this week I will play a Commanders guy. Also, we have a couple of comments to look at.
I do see that, yeah.
But, it is what it is. I will go back to Pacheco. I'm sure of it. I'm sure Pacheco, especially if you give me him at 5K. If he's 5K, I'm playing Pacheco. Sorry.
Well, this man really likes our content. I got to shout him out. He might not know, but we have covered the NBA in the past, and we did do a best ball team that you can go back and watch. It was a live draft, so you'll be able to see our live takes on that draft, and then we'll actually be updating that in a couple of weeks. Once football is over with, we'll have more time. The problem with the NBA is so much of the projections and so much of the news is changing in real time. We haven't found a really fun way to integrate that into our content. Actually, I would say, Donnie, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but you, I, and Gov are all probably, maybe, I would even say originally I was more of an NBA guy than I was an NFL guy. So I just got to find an interesting way to incorporate it where it actually makes sense, because so much of the NBA projections, are so quickly.
It's literally 15 minutes before tip-off, and you find out, there's a 3K guy starting, and you have to play him. Or
minutes are so valuable in that sport that you can't really build a lineup until you know the minutes.
It is tougher. We do watch a lot of NBA. We talk about NBA in private. I mean, we try to integrate it, especially now that the season's going to start picking up. Trades are coming through. We're going to get more chances now.
I should say, since this guy's giving us so much flowers, Donnie, if you haven't liked and subscribed, that does make a big difference to it. Because whether you like our content or not, we are small at this point, Donnie. We are very small. We are trying to grow. We are trying to cultivate. If you do want us to have a thing like a Discord channel for fans, for a bigger community, we need that support. One of the main things that we can do that a lot of bigger channels can is we can be organic, and we can have these, real conversations with people at the stage. And hopefully you realize that we can be as transparent as possible. A lot of bigger channels don't like to be transparent sometimes because it hurts their business model. I don't mind showing the mistakes, because just like you and me, we were talking about Pacheco and Hunt and like what we would do with our actual player pool. I'm sure you played Pacheco in some other lineups, right? Like, these are the guys in our player pool.
Also, on the Showdown comment he had, talking about Showdown,
Mm-hmm.
I will say, we'll talk more about it, especially with the Super Bowl coming. I don't play Showdown. I'm bad at Showdown. I don't like Showdown. I'm very open about that. Logan, you play more than I do. Gov loves Showdown. He seems to excel at Showdown when he's not here with us today, but he's, going to be here for next week's lineup builder and everything. And I'm sure he'll be back for review next week. We just couldn't meet a good time. But I would say what you have to do with Showdown, at worst, you need some sort of strategy. I know, Logan, you like to say, well, I'm not going to play kicker. I'm not going to play defense, but I will make sure I play both quarterbacks no matter what.
Pretty much, yeah. Because what I'm doing is I'm shooting for the highest upside, where I don't want to pay it down for the floor. And sometimes that bites me because the floor gets you 10 points, and it gets you through those sloppy traditional games of like Steelers, Ravens that you might have thought of in the 90s. That's where that 10 points or that kicker point that gets you 8, in a good lineup makes a lot of sense. I do think it's slate dependent sometimes. And that's the hard part about Showdown. Is it's so slate dependent that you really have to be willing to change your philosophy. I think in a main slate DFS, you can be like, oh, stacking is important, or you can have these core elements of how to build a lineup. I really do think Showdown is so dependent on the slate, on how the team really thinks. It's the smallest details between the roster compositions that really affect it. A team, even the weather, like the small edges are even more magnified. And I think that might be one of the reasons you don't like it as much, Donnie, because there's so much other factors that go into it. Because the edges are smaller. But I will say it's harder to outright win one of those contests, but they are fun. Recreationally, I do enjoy the Showdown just because it allows you to hyper focus on a team.
Well, and while we're talking about Showdown, obviously the Super Bowl is going to be a Showdown contest.
Yeah.
Gov won our the spreads this year. So this year we did all the regular season spreads for those who don't know, and he had the best record, so he gets to pick our captain for Showdown. Last year he also won it both times by half a game or one game over me. Not very happy about that one, but last year Gov captained for the Super Bowl. It is Juszczyk last year. Juszczyk happened to have a good week in the Super Bowl. Not happened. That was a part of the game plan, and that's who Kyle Juszczyk is for that team. But it was a great play for captain. It worked out, and we cashed in the Super Bowl last year. This year, we were not sure who Gov's planning on captain, but I know with 4 teams left, he has a short list of guys from every team. He knows who he's going to captain for every team probably by now, or he's about to start to figure it out. But
I would say also that when you the mistake people make is I got to get good players in my lineup. If you want to go with a cheaper, Juszczyk player or something of that nature, that's fine, but you have to know that player is still going to get usage. To put that guy in your captain just so you can get to a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, let's say they were playing, just to get to all the star players doesn't make sense. Your captain should be your highest, one of your highest outcome output players per se.
For example, obviously, for those who aren't in DraftKings Discord, I guess, for the Discord showdowns that were given out for free this past week, the Lions game, I captained Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick didn't get his touchdown, but Tim Patrick did flame as my captain. I didn't cash, but I think that Tim Patrick captain was a good play. As other people went off, so it ended up not working out great.
Right.
But in theory, it was good. It was smart. I didn't captain Zacchaeus, and some people captain Zacchaeus. Let's be honest.
And that's where you can over leverage a point because you're like, well, this is the only way to get the star players in my lineup, so I have to play this cheap guy. But if that cheap guy goes and gets you 0 like Zacchaeus did, it's not a great play. And I do think, like NBA, because it was brought up, Captain Showdown is really an information edge game. So if you have let's just say Donnie's a Patriots fan, so he knows the Patriots beat almost as a beat reporter would. So if you have a small edge on a roster depth chart, hidden gem that most people don't know, those are the edges where you would attack injury news, those type of things. But let's just get back to the lineup reviews just so we can wrap up here, Donnie, so we don't drag out line too long. I was saying, because we did some live commentary during this game, in fact, I've been really impressed with how you've been calling defenses. I still don't know how you do it. I don't know if it's luck. I don't know if it's skill, but that's an area where I'm not so, whatever it is, luck, variance, I've just been terrible about predicting defenses on any sort of level, so I usually just take the cheapest one.
Yeah, since I joined you guys on the show, 2 years ago now, however long it's been, I've always been pretty much been I want to pick defense earlier so we have a decent defense. I don't like leaving defense for the last thing. I want to at least have some salary so I can look and pick my defense. Gov is pretty good with defense as well. As the slates get smaller, I've had a good postseason run with the defenses. I am very, very ecstatic with the ones I've been picking this week, these past couple weeks. All of them I picked so far have flamed, except for the Rams. Didn't flame this week, but let's be honest.
Yeah.
They were pretty damn good. 7 sacks. Man, I didn't even realize they had 7 sacks.
Yeah, they had a lot. Well, I mean, that's no game. It was hard to get any traction for any quarterback. I mean, I think it just really threw off the timing.
Did you see that Stafford, by the way? It said week 15. Since week 15, he's been playing with 4 cracked ribs. That dude is always playing through something ridiculous.
Yeah. At some point, it's not going to be humanly possible anymore for him, but it is quite the feat. I would say most people in the DFS streets, and that's the cool thing about what I do is, even if I don't apply a strategy, I still try to listen to it. Most people will stick to a 3K kind of range with their defense. They'll pay up for just a good 3K range, or they'll pay all the way down like I do.
Or you match up hunt, completely match up hunt against the 8, when Desmond Ridder started or whatever. That thing.
Right. Or there was even weeks where Snoop Huntley from Miami Dolphins was playing, so people were playing a bad Browns defense because they just assumed that matchup, the quarterback defensive matchup was so wide that they took advantage of it. Yeah, that's for sure. How do you think?
I'll say this, by the way. I'm a matchup hunter. On defense, I'm always matchup hunting. Yeah. I will look at everything. I'll look at the receiver, wide receiver, the O-line versus the D-line. I care about the matchup hunts. But continue.
I think we hit on 2 of the more contrarian plays. I would have told you with Daniels and Gibbs. And I was even telling my mom, who's not a DFS person at all, knows I love sports and was just listening to me for conversation. And she knows the Lions, so it was just easy to talk about how I had some Jameson Williams shares, I have some Gibbs shares. I'm like, this should be good. He's having a great. And then I turned over the cards, Donnie. I did not realize that people were going to force him in at a 52% ownership.
It was just such a. I mean, the script is. It was the only clear weather game. It was indoors.
Yeah.
2 high-powered offenses, not great defenses. It doesn't surprise me, but.
And I'm not afraid to be I'm the Lions fan, and I missed it because I would have never missed Gibbs' talent. I was one of the few.
I didn't play any Gibbs, believe it or not. Anytime I played Gibbs or wanted to play Gibbs, I'm like, I'd rather just pay up for Henry at this point.
That's where I was. That's where I was, because we talked about Pacheco and Hunt, and I think it's just a good correlation here. Is I thought Montgomery was going to be more involved than what he was. Now, maybe he was cheerleaded that way. Maybe he didn't have that much to give, and so they wanted to give you the misconception or kind of that illusion that he was more involved.
To be fair, and I'll give this to the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
I think Monty would have played more if they weren't down all game.
It's true. And I think a lot of people would have casted that outcome. They would have casted that the Lions were projected to win by 9.5 points. They would have projected, the Lions are the better offense. And so they're going to be – that's why I got to be really proud of Gov in this lineup, because Gov said, oh, yeah, you want to play all the Lions and you guys think the Lions are going to win? I'm going to play Daniels. I'm going to play Gibbs, because I know if the Lions are down, Gibbs will be involved. And guess what? He was right, Donnie. That this was exactly the thing you should have done. And I do think we ate the 52% really well in this lineup because we got different enough. We let him down with some of our selections. I'm not going to, I can't lie about it. We let him down with some of the selections because if I'm not mistaken, he gave us Daniels, McLaurin, and Gibbs, right?
Yes.
And then we built the rest.
But we built it, the way we built it afterwards was we kind of went heavy on the Lions stuff, Lions Commander stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, the only mistake in this lineup that really is the difference between us cashing and not is I went Pacheco instead of Hunt. And I was fine either way with whichever one we played with. I didn't care.
Which, thank you to Gov and thank you to our fans as well. That's kind of what Gov wanted us to do. He wanted us to go heavy Commanders. And, like, it's a small edges because it's a playoff slot. I think, like you said, if we got Hunt in there, if we just play a different running back, who knows? This lineup, I think, was
that cash line was 154.56. We were literally 10.1 points away from the cash line.
Well, to give you an example, like even like look at these, like when you get up in the playoffs, like we're talking like 5 points making the difference between you winning like $5 and winning 10. You know, the jumps are so much more drastic in the playoffs.
Oh, by the way, the Heat just suspended Jimmy Butler again for 2 games.
Speaking of NBA, he definitely wants out. We might want to do more content and get out of football and do some more basketball content, which we will try to do. One thing is for sure, Jimmy Butler definitely wants out.
Yeah, he wore the Suns theme shoes the other night. He don't care about what's going on in Miami anymore. But speaking of wanting out, I think it's getting to that time for us. I don't have much more to say.
Yeah, I was trying to show you.
Games were fun.
I was trying to see my lineup. Oh, here it is. I think this is my core. We haven't spoke about it. It was honestly our second worst lineup of the year, I think, Donnie. I think our worst lineup had 94 points in like week 14 or 13. So thank God the listener that gave us all the praise joined us in week 15 because I think it was week 14 our lineup was the worst it's ever been. This one was close though.
BK's back, by the way. Best ball team lost. Mine did too. And I'm very disappointed. My best ball team was awful last week. But it wouldn't have mattered. Even if my best ball team played the best they could have, the guy I was up against, his team scored 140-something. I was not beating that, even at the highest ceiling of my lineup. So, Logan's going to take the call, so I'll just rant for a bit. Yeah, no, it was rough for me in best ball. I'm not sure how big might my leak be. I'm not sure what that means. I don't have all the gambling lingo down. But I'll talk some NBA while Logan's gone. As a Celtics fan, I residently am paying way too much close attention to this basketball. Logan, do you have anything basketball related? Because I was about to go on a little bit of a rant about his season.
I do think the audience and the attention spent to the NBA viewership is kind of annoying.
I'm not a huge okay. See, I had to have the comments explain to me what leak meant. but thank you.
See, I step away for one moment and we have a spelling bee contest. I don't know what's going on here, but I would just tell you that it's just disappointing that the NFL is doing so well that people want to compare that to the NBA and then they want to compare that to MLB. There's been shots about their regional coverage and is baseball truly better with the pitch clock? Is the NBA, watchable? Are they too political? And the problem is yes, all that is true. Is sports too political sometimes? Do we get carried away? Do our small podcasts get derailed sometimes? Yes. But there's still a lot of good that's happening in sports. There's a reason that live sports, whether it be football, basketball, or baseball, are being watched by the young people. They are still being watched so I just think that narrative gets overblown a lot. Any specific basketball topic you wanted to bring up?
Trade deadline not quite here yet, so there's not much going on outside of Jimmy Butler stuff, which everyone's heard everything about that. I'm not one to speculate. The Suns look like they're about to make a huge run for him because they just traded for a bunch of first-round picks.
Yeah.
But so I'm sure Jimmy will be a Sun soon, and we'll get paid a max contract, and that Sun team will once again flame out as it always does because it's not that good. Otherwise,
I do
UFL
think
coming up. I want to reiterate this. Just because the NFL is about to end, we have UFL content coming out. I've been to a UFL game in person. We love the game. We love the league. We're going to keep supporting it. That is going
if you want to try something different, the UFL has it's a great time to get in. The information edge is small. Like Gov, Donnie, and I have all watched the UFL. I guess you can consider seasoned vets at this point. I follow a lot of the beat reporters on Twitter. Like, we're in depth as much as you can. It's a really fun watch. There's obviously some NFL names that you'll recognize. They do things just different enough. I actually really like it. The only problem with the DFS coverage of it, Donnie, is the contests are very small. Yeah, but we need people to play.
But I will say, while we're talking about it, it wasn't just the UFL that was profitable for us last year. Mm-hmm. We made profit on the UFL, and we had some home run hits last year.
We did.
It also made the preseason profitable for us because we knew preseason names. There was a lot of UFL guys on rosters. So it's not just that little bit.
Well, we saw it with Bates. I mean, Bates literally took the Lions, my team, obviously, so I know them the best. But he was on the Michigan Panthers last year. So,
any suggestions on how to leave salary on the table? That's a great question. I would say, like, it never leave more than 600 on the table, Logan. You would say?
I think it depends. Like, sometimes you'll find like an injury news, especially on like a showdown slate, will just like it will totally wreck what DraftKings was intending for that night. And so you'll just leave 1,000 on the table because, there's a certain cap and that just makes a lot more sense. Like for example, let's say Barkley was ruled out. You would obviously play Gainwell in almost in any flex situation. Or if you captain Gainwell, you might not need to use all your salary to get in Hurts, to get in A.J. Brown, to get in Smith, or whoever they were playing on that, that opposite end.
Yeah. But let's say everybody's healthy and everything's right. 600 about, you shouldn't be leaving more than that, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say that. I can leave 600, especially if you want to get different on a defense. I don't think I've personally left more than 1,000. If you left more than 1,000 or under, you'd have to explain it to me.
You have to make it, as long as you can say it makes sense. But spending all your salary every week is definitely a mistake.
Right.
You're overthinking something.
Because, for example, like wide receivers are $3K, and the cheapest running backs are $4,500. So that could be the difference in a flex decision in a lineup, right? So if you just wanted to play 3 running backs, that were going to get 20 plus touches in a week, that might be a week that you would do it. Or if there was a bunch of wide receivers that you wanted to jam in your flex and you didn't need to pay up for that running back, that week, you might do that. But even still, I wouldn't leave that much because more often than not, they are correct, actually. We talked about defense earlier, Donnie. Usually that is the position that DraftKings gets right. So if you have that extra money, most of the time there's an upgrade somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's really leaving money is a way to fight off ownership.
Right.
There are a lot of people who struggle with that same thing of, oh, well, I have this extra money. I can fit this better player in. Just because somebody's a better player does not make them a better play. There's a big difference there. So we just have to go through, me and Gov, we look at a lot more statistics than Logan likes to. And he goes, but this Hollywood Brown play, he's going to be what? Probably 4K next week. I would much rather play 4K Hollywood Brown than 4,500 DeAndre Hopkins, just because his ceiling is so high.
I want to say they left Brown at the same price and they bumped down Hopkins by like 100. But my point is, this is an example of it. Say you only had enough money to play Hopkins or Brown. Like their price is so similar that you could leave that difference on a salary, right? And be like, well, I still like the defense. I still think this defense is going to give me 14, so you leave them in. But there's times where you were trying to get too cute on ownership because, like in this lineup, you can even do this on main slate. You can overstack a game, and if you overstack a game, the cumulative ownership of that lineup is different enough. So I don't think that you should use your salary just as a way to get different with ownership. Yes, it will make you different, but I think it's one of the worst ways to get different, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's just another edge.
Right. If you have a reason for saving that money, that's different. But lean into that reason, not that, don't go into it saying like, oh, well, I want to leave $900. If the $900 build makes sense, then that's okay.
Well, and that's why, for a long time, and obviously it's less to this extent now because for the playoffs, we're doing our cores. But, we have those lineups where it's just, all right, we're going to build all these values first. We're going to leave whatever it is, 1,500 on the table. We set a rule for that, and then we move up. It's fine to think about salary savers, but you have to make it make sense too.
Well, I'll mention one other point because it's actually it correlates to this lineup. We can quickly then go on to it and move on. The first game was like the Lions with the Washington Commanders. So making sure Barkley was in the flex position in this lineup makes all the sense. Like, obviously, if you look at it now, Davis scored 3, Barkley scored 42. Well, it's only smart to have Barkley there. Yes, that would be true. But also saying, like, this lineup, you're going to leave $600 and then play Barkley in the flex. If Barkley's ruled out and you want to play A.J. Brown, let's just say he was a bit more, you have the money to do it. You can move up and off of that player based on how your lineup started or is doing in that lineup. If your lineup is off to a bad start, like this lineup got off to a bad start with 2 zeros, you may need to take a higher chance at someone else. And so that's where having the extra money and leaving money purposely on the table is also valuable.
All right.
I think
that's pretty much it for this section.
We'll
be back.
I do want to ask you one question though about this lineup, Donnie.
Yeah.
So because we played Mahomes and Hollywood and Hopkins, do you think this was wrong, or do you think it's result oriented just to say this lineup was wrong?
I wasn't a fan of it from the start, just because but we had a reason for it. I said if you're going to be Mahomes stacking, it should have brought Kelsey, just in general. Yeah. Your argument for that was, well, everyone's going to play Kelsey, and if it's Hopkins instead, and which makes sense. The way I always play it is when it gets to this part of the season, I just bank on the old school connections, the Brady to Gronks, the Mahomes to Kelsey's. That's how I always play it.
And that's how we should have played it, to be fair. That's how we should have played it this week.
I think that's what was wrong with it. And it's fine. You just didn't agree with my philosophy. And that's the point of getting different, having these core conversations. And this is why we do it, so we can get on different plays.
So again, just to close up, Donnie, that's exactly it. I do believe that you were right, that Kelsey was the highest outcome player to actually pair with Mahomes. And to overcome what we expected from Travis Kelsey, let's be honest, it was going to take 2 players. So basically what I'm saying is, for Kelsey to be outscored in this lineup with Mahomes, it was going to take 2 outlier performances from the wide receivers. That's why I played it. Obviously, we saw the Kelsey explosion, so then the wide receivers really didn't show up, and this lineup failed. Yeah. But with that being said, we will have go back for the next show. We will bring a lineup builder show. We have Saturday now opened up. If you guys don't know as well, the 2 games will be on Sunday. The slate's a bit more condensed. It's a bit trickier for us, but we will be back. We have to lock in the time. Obviously, Gov's not here to discuss that now, but we will have a time for you. I'll get that on Twitter as well. And I just want to thank you guys tonight. I know it was a bit of a different show. It was a bit of a quicker show. But hopefully you've enjoyed this season. Good night, guys.